Hello, dear students. I am Dr. N. Usharani, speaking today on quality control of dosage forms. Quality control of dosage forms is concerned with providing accurate, specific, and definite descriptions of the procedures to be employed from the receipt of the raw materials to the release of the finished dosage forms. So it is concerned with providing accurate, specific, and definite descriptions of the procedures to be employed, dear students, from the receipt of the raw materials to the up to release of the finished dosage forms. So today I'm going to discuss about the quality control of different dosage forms. In that, I would like to start with quality control of parenterals. In quality control of parenterals, we will be discussing about the environmental control, pH, viscosity, osmolality, conductivity measurement, temperature for heat sterilized products, volume filled, leakage test, clarity test, pyrogen test for parenterals, sterility tests, then weight variation or content uniformity tests. Then coming to the environmental control here, it is nothing but traffic control. A carefully designed arrangement to control traffic must be followed. The personnel should be permitted into the aseptic areas only after following rigidly prescribed procedures. Surface disinfection personnel, for example, must be inherently neat, orderly, reliable, alert, and should be in good health. This is regarding the environmental control in case of parenterals. And coming to the air control, it is usually done with the help of HEPA filters, that is high efficiency particulate air filters. They are composed of glass fibers and filters, and they are 99.97% efficient and remove particles of zero point 0.3 micron size and larger, and they work at a velocity of 100 plus or minus 20 feet per minute. Coming to the pH measurement in case of parenterals, it is usually done with the help of a pH paper or a pH meter. A simple use of a pH paper or a pH meter, which directly gives the digital readings when the electrode is dipped into the solution, is usually used in case of parenterals. Then coming to viscosity, it is actually the consistency that we actually are going to assess here, and it is related to the stability of the solutions, and the viscosity is usually measured by using viscometers. We'll see this about the different viscometers that will be used for determining the viscosity of parenterals in the discussion. Coming to control on volume filled, actually here the personnel working in these areas must monitor all the filling equipments in order to control the volume filled. The filling equipments must be properly monitored. That is the measure that you have to take here to control the volume. Coming to osmolality, it is a count of number of particles in a fluid sample, and the osmolality of the solution is measured using an osmometer. The most commonly used instrument in the modern laboratories for measuring osmolality is the freezing point depression osmometer. It is freezing point depression osmometer. Coming to the conductivity measurement, it is measured by using the conductometer, and it is also necessary to measure the conductivity of the vehicles used in the sterile preparations. Usually, the conductivity of pure water is 0.055 microsiemens per centimeter. Coming to temperature for the heat sterilized products, it is very important to maintain constant temperature during heat sterilization of the products. The temperature may cause some undesirable changes like change in potency, change in isotonicity, etc. The temperature can be determined by normal thermometer or digital thermometers. This is regarding the temperature for heat sterilized products. Coming to the leakage test, it is employed to test the package intensity. There are three methods here: visual inspection, bubble test, and the dye test. Coming to the clarity test for parenterals, it is usually used to control the particulate matter in the injections. There are two methods that can be used here. That is according to the filled volumes of the products. That is for large volume parenterals and for small volume parenterals. For large volume parenterals, a filtration followed by microscopical examination procedure is used. It is filtration, using a membrane filter followed by microscopical examination. This is usually followed for the large volume parenterals. For small volume parenterals, a light obscuration based sensor that contains electronic liquid-borne particle counter system is usually used for small volume parenterals. It is electronic liquid-borne particle counter system that is used for checking the particulate matter in case of small volume parenterals. So here, the large volume parenterals are said to pass the test if they contain not more than 50 particles per ml of 10 micron size and not more than 5 particles per ml of 25 microns. And the small volume parenteral is said to pass the test if it contains not more than 10,000 particles per container of 10 microns and not more than 1,000 particles per container of 25 microns. Then coming to the sterility test for parenterals, it is usually done by two methods, that is a membrane filtration technique as well as a direct transfer method. Membrane filtration technique and direct transfer method. In the membrane filtration technique is usually suitable for liquids, soluble powders and bacteriostatic or fungistatic properties containing oils, creams and ointments. Then sterility test by direct transfer is performed by aseptic transfer of a specified volume of the test container or the test organism to the culture medium and incubated for 14 days, and the visual observation of the medium is done on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th and the 14th days. This is a brief description of the membrane filtration technique and direct transfer technique, where incubation is seen in case of direct transfer technique and filtration followed by microscopical examination in case of membrane filtration techniques. Then, in case of the direct transfer technique, the test meets the requirements when no growth is observed. And if growth is observed, then the test is repeated in the second stage, and generally second stage is repeated with double the number of specimens tested in the first stage. This has to be remembered in many of the quality control tests when the first condition is not met, and when you conduct the test at the second stage, you usually conduct it with double the number of specimens. A membrane filter with porosity of 0.45 microns and the diameter of 47 mm with a flow rate of 55 to 75 ml of water per minute at a pressure of 70 centimeters of mercury is usually used in case of membrane filtration techniques. Just know what I told is a specification of the membrane that is used. Coming to the pyrogen test, it is performed by using the rabbits as test animals. Initially 10 ml per kg body weight of the animal is injected through the ear vein at 37 plus or minus 2 degrees centigrade, and the temperatures are recorded at 1, 2 and 3 hours after the injection. The requirements are met if the rise in temperature of the individual rabbit is not more than 0.6 centigrade and the sum of rise in temperature of the 3 rabbits is not more than 1.4 degree centigrade. If any of the rabbits show a rise in temperature of more than 0.6 degrees centigrade and the sum of rise of temperature of the 3 rabbits exceeds 1.4 degrees centigrade, then the test is repeated using 5 more rabbits. 5 more rabbits. Then, in this case, the requirements are met if 3 out of 8 rabbits. So 5 more rabbits means the second set of test is conducted by using 8 rabbits. So here the test is met if 3 out of 8 rabbits show an individual rise in temperature of not more than 0.6 degrees centigrade and sum of maximum rise in temperature of 8 rabbits is not more than 3.7 degrees centigrade. This is regarding the pyrogen test for parenterals. Coming to the LAL test, that is LAL, is nothing but Limulus amoebocyte lysate test, which is used to characterize the bacterial endotoxin that may be present in the parenteral. Here, the reference solution contains around 10,000 USP endotoxins per vial, and the LAL reagent is used for gel clot formation. Here, it is usually measured or checked and confirmed with the gel clot formation. The test is performed using stated amounts of the volumes of the products, standards, positive controls, negative controls of endotoxins, and then the tubes are incubated at 37 plus or minus 1 degree centigrade for 60 plus or minus 2 minutes. When the tubes are inverted at 180 degrees centigrade angle, formation of a firm gel confirms the positive reaction. So here after incubation, if there is a formation of the firm gel, it confirms the positive reaction. While the formation of a viscous gel that doesn't maintain its integrity or absence of a firm gel confirms a negative reaction to the test. This is regarding the LAL test. Then one of the important tests for parenterals is weight variation or content uniformity test. The test is intended for sterile solids used for parenteral preparation. Here, the weight of 10 individual sterile units is noted and the content is removed from them and the empty individual sterile units is weighed in turn. The net weight is calculated by subtracting the empty sterile unit weight from the gross weight. The content of the active ingredient in each sterile unit is calculated by performing the assay according to the individual monographs. The contents in 10 sterile units is calculated by performing the assay. Here, the specifications are like this for weight uniformity. The dosage uniformity is met if the amount of active ingredient is within the range of 85 to 115% of the label claim as determined by the content uniformity method or weight variation method and the relative standard deviation is less than 6%. Coming to the quality control test for ointments, here, there are certain physical tests and microbiological methods. Dear students, here in physical tests, there are the test for rate of absorption, the test for non-irritancy, test for rate of penetration, the test for rate of drug release, test for rheological properties, test for content uniformity. Then microbiological methods include test for microbial content, test for preservative efficacy, etc. So here coming to the test for rate of absorption in case of ointments, the ointment should be applied over a definite area of the skin by rubbing and at regular intervals of time, the serum and urine sample should be analyzed for the quantity of the drug absorbed. The rate of absorption, that is the amount of drug absorbed per unit time, should be usually going on increasing. This is the simple test to determine rate of absorption of the ointment. Then coming to the test for non-irritancy, it is usually evaluated by patch test. Here in this test, 24 human volunteers are selected. Then definite quantity of ointment is applied under occlusion daily on the back for about 21 days and daily the type of pharmacological action observed is noted. No visible reaction of erythema or intense erythema with edema and vesicular erosion should occur in case of this test. Then coming to the test for rate of drug release. In case of ointments, a clean test tube is taken and the internal surface is coated with the preparation as a thin layer. Then saline or serum is poured into the test tube. After a certain period of time, the saline is analyzed for quantity of the drug. The amount of the drug when divided by time period gives the rate of drug release. Then test for rheological properties of ointments, that is test for consistency of the ointments. The viscosity of the preparation should be such that the product can be easily removed from the container and easily applied to the skin. Using cone and plate viscometer, the viscosity of the preparation is determined. Then in case of ointments, the test for content uniformity is done like this. The net weight of contents of 10 filled ointment containers is determined. Then the results should be match each other and with the labeled quantity. This test is also called as minimum fill test. Minimum fill test. Then test for microbial content in case of ointments. Microbial organisms like Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Staphylococcus aureus may contaminate the preparation and finally infect the skin. So ointments should be tested for absence of such microorganisms. Solutions of different samples of the preparation are made for this test, and then each sample is inoculated with separate volumes of 0.5 ml of rabbit's plasma under aseptic conditions and incubated for 37 degrees centigrade for 1 to 4 hours. No formation of the clot in the incubated mass indicates the absence of microorganisms. Coming to test for preservative efficacy, uh, the test is like this. Solutions of different samples of preparation are made and mixed with the tryptone azolectin broth separately. All cultures of the microorganisms are added into each mixture under aseptic conditions and then kept for incubation. The number of microorganisms in each sample are counted on 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th days of inoculation. Then on the 14th day, the number of vegetative cells should not be more than 0.1% of the initial concentration. Then this is regarding the quality control tests of ointments, dear students. Now I am going to speak about the quality control tests for tablets. So, quality control tests for tablets include tests for general appearance like size, shape, and thickness. Organoleptic properties include color, odor of the tablets, then weight uniformity and content uniformity tests, dissolution tests. Here, the dissolution test is conducted with an objective that the drug must be released from the tablet in a controlled and reproducible way. Weight variation, thickness, and diameter are also checked, and these are checked with an objective that the appearance of the tablet should be elegant and its weight, size, and appearance should be consistent. Then hardness and friability test. In this test, the objective is the tablet should show sufficient mechanical strength to withstand the fracture and erosion that is caused during manufacture and handling, shipping, etc. Then coming to the physical tests that are applicable to the tablet formulations, they are the bulk density, tapered density of powder, powder fineness, loss on drying, disintegration test, tablet friability, dissolution test, drug release testing, uniformity of dosage form, container permeation test, labeling of inactive ingredients, etc. The tests can also be classified into official tests and non-official tests. The official tests for tablets usually are the uniformity of active ingredients, disintegration, and dissolution. These form the main important tests for the tablets. Coming to the non-official tests, it is hardness and friability. Coming to the hardness test, it measures the crushing strength property defined as the compressional force applied diametrically to a tablet which will just fracture it. Why do we do this measure? Why do we have to measure the hardness of the tablet? To determine the need for pressure adjustments on the tableting machines. It is usually done to determine the pressure adjustments on the tableting machines. Hardness can affect the disintegration. So if the tablet is too hard, it may not disintegrate in the required time period. And if the tablet is too soft, it will not withstand the handling during shipping, transportation, etc. So these are the constraints why hardness has to be checked, and the tablet has to retain certain optimal hardness. If the tablet hardness is too high, we have to first check its disintegration before rejecting the batch. And if the disintegration is within limit, then even though it is hard, we need not reject the batch. It can be accepted. So coming to the testing of hardness, you can test the hardness by using a Monsanto tester. The apparatus consists of two jaws facing each other, in between which where you put the tablet, one of which moves towards each other. The jaws move towards each other, and the measurement is carried out on 10 tablets, taking care to remove all the fragments of the broken tablets before each determination, and then take the average hardness. The limits are like the normal tablet hardness ranges from 4 to 6 kg, where 1 kg is equal to a force of 10 newtons. Then factors affecting the hardness. Few factors like the compressive forces that are used and compressive forces that are used and granulation methods, whether it is a wet granulation or a dry granulation methods that are used usually affect the hardness. The hardness testers, commercially available testers are the Monsanto testers, Pfizer testers, Tomcob hardness tester, then Haberlin tester, Evica tester, Casbert hardness testers, etc. These are the different commercially available hardness testers for tablets. Then coming to the friability. Friability is also usually tested. How far to check how far the tablets are able to withstand some mechanical pressure. So it is done like this: coating, packaging, transport, which are not severe enough to break the tablet but may abrade a small particle for the tablet surface. The activities like coating, packaging, transport, etc. may abrade a tablet surface. So to examine this, whether the tablets are able to withstand these activities like coating, packaging, transport, etc., we usually conduct a friability test by using a friabilator, and the tablets are subjected to a tumbling motion here for a specified time, and the weight loss is calculated. So the machine used here, or the instrument used here, is called as a friabilator. So here the method is simple. Initially we take 20 tablets, find out the initial weight, then put the tablets into the friabilator, where you subject the tablets to a tumbling motion by adjustment of the instrument at 100 rpm. Then after subjecting the tablets for 100 rpm, you have to again weigh the 20 tablets and see the difference between the initial weight and the final weight, and which gives the percentage loss. So the friability is nothing here calculated by the percentage weight loss, that is before subjecting to the tumbling motion and after subjecting to the tumbling motion. Then coming to disintegration here, it is a time required for the tablet to break into particles. Disintegration test is a time required for the tablet to break into particles. Liquids used in disintegration test, or the mediums that are used, are water, simulated gastric fluids with pH 1.2 HCl, or simulated intestinal fluids of pH 7.5 potassium dihydrogen phosphate buffers, then pancreatic enzyme along with in the presence of sodium hydroxide, etc., can be used as mediums for disintegration tests. So here the disintegration test can be started with six tablets. If one or two tablets from the 6 tablets fail to disintegrate completely within 30 minutes, repeat the same test on another 12 tablets. That is, the whole test will consume 18 tablets. Not less than 16 disintegrate completely within the time. If more than 2 tablets fail to disintegrate out of 18, the batch must be rejected. So for coated tablets, we have to remove the coat first. So to remove or dissolve the coat, we have to immerse the tablet in distilled water for 5 minutes. Then put the tablet in the apparatus, into that is the disintegration apparatus, which contains the medium like water or HCl, etc. If it is not disintegrated, then put it in a medium of intestinal fluid, simulated intestinal fluid. If one or two tablets fail to disintegrate, then repeat with 12 more tablets, etc. So here the procedure is same. We follow for the normal tablets, but here the coat has to be removed before you subject it for the disintegration procedures. So you place the tablets in a simulated gastric fluid or HCl for the first time. If they disintegrate, you continue the test. If they don't disintegrate, then place them in the intestinal fluid or simulated intestinal fluid and continue the test. 16 tablets out of total 18 must comply to disintegrate within time. Coming to the enteric coated tablets, here also the procedure is same. In the beginning, the coat has to be removed by placing the tablets in distilled water, then placing the tablets in simulated gastric fluid, and then placing them in simulated intestinal fluids and testing them. If one or two tablets fail to disintegrate, so again you continue with 12 more tablets. So 16 tablets out of total 18 tablets should comply with the disintegration. Then uniformity of active ingredients or content uniformity test. It is measured to ensure a certain dose of drug between the individual tablets is maintained constant. It is usually measured to ensure constant dose of drugs in all the tablets. Traditionally, the dose variation between the tablets is tested in two separate tests. The first one is the weight variation test. Here, what you do in the weight variation test is weigh about 20 tablets selected at random, each one individually, x1, x2, x3, so on up to xz be the individual weights, then determine the average weight of these 20 tablets. Then not more than two of the individual weights must deviate from the average weight by more than the prescribed percentage of deviation limits. The deviation limits are like this. When the weight of the tablets is 80 mg or less, then the percentage deviation in the weight must be equal to plus or minus 10%. If the weight of the tablet is more than 80 and less than 250 mg, then the percentage deviation must be plus or minus 7.5%. If the weight of the tablet is 250 mg or more than that, then the percentage deviation must be plus or minus 5%. So coming to the content uniformity test of tablets, here randomly we have to select 30 tablets, 10 of these must be assayed individually. The tablet passed the test if 9 out of the 10 tablets usually show the required specifications. If 9 out of 10 tablets show the required specifications, that is 9 out of 10 tablets must contain not less than 85% and not more than 115% of the labeled drug content. This is regarding the content uniformity test. Coming to the dissolution test, the release of the drug from the tablet into the solution per unit time under standard conditions is called as a dissolution test. This is usually done by using two types of apparatus, that is the basket type of apparatus and the paddle type of apparatus. And the media that are used to test the dissolution is purified water, simulated gastric fluid, simulated intestinal fluids, others. And the instruments are basket type and paddle type. Coming to apparatus 1, that is basket type, a single tablet is placed in a small wire mesh basket attached to the bottom of the shaft and connected to a variable speed motor. The basket is immersed in a dissolution medium contained in a 1000 ml flask, and the flask is cylindrical with a hemispherical bottom, and the flask is maintained at 36 or minus 0.5 degrees centigrade by a constant temperature bar. The motor is adjusted to turn at specified speed, and the sample of the fluid are withdrawn at intervals to determine amount of the drug in the solutions. Coming to the paddle type, it is the same as apparatus 1 except for the basket, it is replaced with the paddle. The dosage form is allowed to sink to the bottom of the flask before stirring. The test tolerance is expressed as a percentage of the labeled amount of the drug dissolved in the limit time or the time limit. Then coming to the in-process quality control of the liquid orals. Liquid orals are basically two types, that is monophasic liquids, that is solutions, syrups, elixirs, etc. Then biphasic liquids like emulsions, suspensions, etc. Coming to the monophasic liquids, the tests are like this. Clean and purified vehicle must be used. Then quality control technicians test the water frequently to ensure that it is clean and pure before it is used for syrup preparation. The syrup after prepared is also thoroughly filtered before filling into the bottles. Then the next one is a light transmittance test. A light transmittance meter is now being used to check the syrup colors. A light transmittance meter can be used here. Then coming to visual inspection. We usually do visual inspection to see the clarity of the solution of the liquid oral. The ingredients and the final products are carefully examined for purity and for appearance. Physical appearance of the products for patient adherence and compliance is critical. So it should be good looking, elegant, and with a good appearance. pH measurement of liquid orals is like this. We can measure the pH by using a pH meter or a pH paper. Then determination of sucrose concentrations, which is usually done for syrups. Your sucrose concentration must be adequate and uh, properly maintained or properly calculated, because high amount of or high concentration of sucrose may cause the syrup to crystallize, and very less sucrose concentrations may favor microbial growth. So high amount of sugar or low amount of sucrose must be avoided, and properly calculated adequate amount of sucrose must be maintained in syrups. And for determination of the amount of sucrose used in the syrups, we can use HPLC determination and UV spectroscopy. HPLC determination and UV spectroscopy can be used to determine the sucrose concentrations in syrups. Coming to the determination of alcohol concentration for elixirs. In case of elixirs, we have to check for alcohol concentrations. They usually contain 5 to 40% of alcohol, and it is determined by distillation, specific gravity methods, etc. Coming to the biphasic liquids, they are emulsions, suspensions, etc. So coming to quality control tests for suspensions, here usually the redispersibility is a point of matter. The suspensions must maintain this redispersibility property. So here, then only they are readily acceptable. The measurement of sedimentation volume and ease of redispersion forms two of the most common basic evaluation procedures for suspensions. The sedimentation volume is a simple ratio of the height of the sediment to the initial height of the suspension. The larger the value, the better is the suspendability. The larger the value of sedimentation volume, the better the value of suspendability. Then determination of particle size and particle size distribution. This is usually done by freeze-thaw cycling technique, optical microscopy, sedimentation by using Anderson apparatus, counter apparatus. All these methods can be used to determine the particle size of the suspensions. Coming to rheological properties, it is a measure of resistance the spindle meets at various levels in the suspension. This technique also indicates in which level of the suspension the structure is greater due to particle aggregates. Why rheological studies are usually performed is because particles may aggregate and form agglomerates, and therefore the consistency of the suspension or redispersibility is badly affected. Hence, rheological studies have to be conducted. This is usually done with the help of a Brookfield viscometer, which usually contains a paddle, a spindle, which is run from the top to bottom of the suspension. And here the digital reading in this Brookfield viscometer usually show the resistance that is observed or experienced by the spindle. There will be more resistance if there are aggregates that are formed in the suspension, or the spindle uniformly moves from top to bottom if there is no caking or agglomerates that are formed in the suspension. So the Brookfield viscometer consists of a T-bar spindle, an inverted T-bar spindle. This inverted T-bar spindle dips into the suspension, moves from the top to the bottom of the suspension, and it shows the resistance if it is observed or experienced, if at all any agglomerates are present in the suspension. So stability testing. Stability testing is also very important for suspensions. It is not possible to conduct accelerated temperature studies as it is done in case of solutions. The formulation exhibiting thixotropic properties, a rise in temperature would change the properties. The valid temperature data should be obtained that will be used in the estimation of physical stability of the product at normal storage conditions. The extended aging tests are performed here to check the stability of the suspensions. Extended aging tests are performed or are employed under various conditions to obtain the information. Then content uniformity test or uniformity of content test. Suspensions that contain less than 10 mg or less than 10% of the active ingredient comply with the following test. The test is done like this. You have to empty each container and carry out the test on the active ingredients. Determine the content of the active ingredients of each of the 10 ml containers, each of the 10 containers taken at a random using the method given in the monograph or by using any other suitable analytical method. The preparation complies with the test if the individual values thus obtained are between 85 to 115% of the average value. Then coming to the dose and uniformity of dose of oral drops. The test is performed like this in case of oral drops. To a graduated cylinder, we have to introduce by means of a dropping device or by means of a measuring device the number of drops usually prescribed for one dose. The dropping speed does not exceed 2 drops per second. We have to weigh the liquid, repeat the addition, weigh again, carry on repeating the additions and weighing until a total of 10 masses are obtained. No single mass deviates by more than 10% from the average mass. The total of 10 masses does not differ by more than 15% from the nominal mass of 10 doses. So this is regarding the test for uniformity of dose for oral drops. Then determination of phase separation. This is in case of emulsions. Phase separation may be observed visually or by measuring the volume of the separated phases or by subjecting the emulsions to various stress conditions like boiling, temperature variations, etc. Then there is an electrokinetic method in case of suspensions. The determination of surface electric charge or zeta potential of the suspension is very helpful to find out the stability of the suspension. Then a micromeretic method also can be used to study the stability. The stability of the suspension depends on the particle size of the dispersed phase. A change in the particle size distribution and crystal habit may be studied by microscopy and counter-counter method. By microscopy and counter-counter method, where you can use the micromeretic principles, you can study the particle size and therefore stability of the suspensions. Coming to the test of labels or labeling test, the labels should contain the name of any additional antimicrobial preservative that is used on the liquid oral. The label should contain the name of any antimicrobial preservative that is used as an antimicrobial preservative. Then coming to storage, the storage of oral liquids or powders and granules for preparation of oral liquids in well-closed containers at temperatures not exceeding 30 degrees centigrade. So the storage parameters are well-closed containers at temperatures not exceeding 30 degrees centigrade. So students, these are the different quality control tests for parenterals, ointments, tablets, then liquid orals, in that again for suspensions, oral drops, etc.